Alright everyone, there will only be one video today because there's really only one thing on people's mind. I realize that there's all sorts of cool international news and science and stuff like that to cover, but as an American, there's really not a whole lot else going on. Look at the CNN front page right now when you watch this video. What do you see? About 20 different takes on the Trump verdict. I wonder why. We've just thrown out nearly 250 years of civic precedents. And legal precedents in the United States because of a highly politicized prosecutorial system attempting to take Trump off the campaign trail. Now we have to gauge the reaction. The trial is now over. He's been found guilty on over 30 felony counts. Sentencing, I mean, it's a joke when they report on that. They're like, well, they've chosen the date 4 days before the Republican National Convention. Yeah, but it's going to be on endless appeal, so, you're not going to see Trump dragged off into a cell or something like all the liberals are masturbating over at the moment. You're not even going to get that hilarious image, which I personally think would just help him even more. Here's the fallout in a nutshell. Number one, highly polarizing. People who supported Trump and organizations that supported Trump now support him twice as much. Those that didn't support him continue not to support him and are chuckling about it and saying, well, he's done for this time. But the thing is, we've heard that before. In the end, I think that this benefits Donald Trump, but I don't think that it moves the metric of the race in which he is. He is the nominee for the GOP. He just hasn't been coronated yet, basically. That process hasn't officially ended, but we know he's the nominee. What I'm looking at is basically both sides. Sort of hardening, the support and the anti-support hardening. And that's really all I'm seeing. It doesn't appear to have swayed any other voters. In the end, I think some independent voters come to their senses and support Trump. This gives them another reason to do so other than Bidenomics failing and the border and things like that. It doesn't really move the metric massively. I'd be surprised if it was more than a point or two. This is meaningful, certainly in a relatively close polling in some of those states, certainly meaningful, but is it the most meaningful thing that it could be? No, I don't think this causes a 10-point shift for or against Trump. Some people will swear up and down he's toast, now a significant proportion of Americans will never support him. Well, that's true, but I mean, most of them didn't support him to begin with, so that's a blunted effect. Or that a bunch of Americans will consider it to be a great, revolutionary moment, and therefore flock to Trump as the dissident candidate. Some will. That's more meaningful because some of them are independent voters that aren't, completely on board with the Trump train. But it's not a hugely meaningful impact that I'm expecting. One thing that I am seeing, though, that's meaningful is that even the neocons with TDS are questioning the verdict. Even Susan Collins, who has TDS, she is one of the key rhino neocons in Congress, along with Romney and Cornyn and a few others. One of the key neocons, literally like fucking Murkowski or something, comes out and says, well, this was obviously politicized and I've got some significant questions about this. She stopped shy of saying full-throated support for Trump now, we must fight back or something like that, because she knows her constituency. But her reaction is actually a little bit unexpected. I expected that at least some of the core neocons with their TDS would sort of hold that same line and say, well, something along the lines of this, well, while I think that there were problems with the prosecution, it was political, the jury in the end did the right thing or something like that. We're not seeing that. We're seeing an absolute wagon circling around Trump, even by Republicans that provably fucking hate him. There are liberal commentators now that are edging towards Trump. I can't remember what's his name there. Just cut a $300,000 check for Trump. He's a former, I guess at this point, former Democrat, and wrote an op-ed explaining the reasoning process behind why. Again, sorry, I can't remember the name. It's on RCP right now. You can look that up for yourself real easy. I am seeing some people that were on the fence. In the places where it matters the most, by the way, the donor class, moving towards Trump. And then this is less than 24 hours after the verdict. That is probably a sign that this is not going to alienate him from voters. If anything, probably the inverse. And the Democrats shouldn't have done this. This was their Hail Mary. The whole idea was that they hoped that by simply indicting Trump on a bunch of shit charges, that people would not want to vote for him. they would say, well, I mean, God, he's going to be a... They didn't want him to win the primaries, though. The first goal of these lawfare situations really was to keep him from winning the primaries, to run interference for Nikki Haley mainly, the neocon candidate. And they figured the Republican voting bloc is unlikely to nominate a person who they think cannot win because they'll be in jail on election day. That was the whole goal. And it won't happen, but that was the goal. And that didn't work out. Instead, it backfired. And then they slow-walked the process, and they said, okay, well, the second best thing we can do is drag this out as long as possible. 2 of the cases against Trump are on indefinite hold at this point. They're being appealed to all hell. The Jack Smith case is dead in the water. This case is, we might not even in the end get a sentencing for this. It's been docketed for right before the convention. What convenient timing, by the way. I would point out one other thing, though, and people are missing the context. Trump's defense did not care that they scheduled it for right before the convention. I think indeed that is the point. Can you imagine a more stark situation in which the voting public is zapped into realizing what the hell is happening than for Trump to get sentenced and not be there at the convention at all? So the person that 99% of the delegates are pledged to, who has won basically everywhere, can't even show up to give a convention speech, or has to teleconference in from a confiscated cell phone or something. Imagine you get Trump, he's in the orange jumpsuit with a do-rag on his head with a couple of Crips next to him in the cell with the smuggled cell phone doing the address to the RNC. It'd be the most mimetic thing ever. The most gangsta thing ever, by the way. Be hilarious. It would be pure Trump, something like that. The only thing that I expect is the unexpected at this point. Nothing that has happened up until now really has a precedent. You'd never had a case against a former president, number one, and they would never had a conviction of a former president. You've never had a person convicted on this kind of charge where the judge instructs the jury, it doesn't really matter what crime you think he was covering up. You don't have to agree on that. Unanimity is not necessary, despite the fact that there's literally a Supreme Court decision saying that you do need unanimity in the underlying crime in order to overlap the charges, which is why on appeal this will be thrown out. The liberals, I don't think in the end will get their way. My analysis based on the reactions of other people is one part anger from people who really like Trump, or concern for the nation in general as we slip further into a fascistic oligarchic system and away from a democratic republic that actually functions. So there's anger and despair in that case. I've noticed one other positive thing, which is that I noticed that a lot of the black pillars have become suddenly unblack-pilled. I guess they finally snapped. They realized, okay, they think that everything's lost anyway, so they're like, to hell with it. And I think that might be the way some of them are thinking. I myself am white-pilled. If anything, this makes it more likely Trump wins. He could literally win from house arrest at the Mar-a-Lago. In fact, I'm hoping that we get a situation like that. How do you even sentence him, by the way? You probably can't throw him in jail. Even Merchant admitted this. Well, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do about this. You know, you could fine him, but he's got billions of dollars, so that's not really meaningful, and there are caps on the amount that you can fine a person anyway, so, I don't know, what would it be, 50 grand per charge or something? Trump can dig that out of his ass when he goes to the bathroom this morning, so that's not a problem. House arrest, well, there's his Elba moment. Suspend the sentence, well, the liberals will riot. They'll say they'll consider that to be him being treated differently under the law. Technically speaking, they'd be right. And Merchant can come out and Alvin Bragg can come out and say to the public all they want, well, we don't have a choice. I think that would lead to another summer of love moment, harming the Democrats further in the process when the leftoids show their ass, by the way. The fallout of the verdict really is blunted overall, but where it counts in the rungs of power, so public officials, etc., the donor class, it is a swing towards Trump, actually. It is advantage Donald Trump. By the way, probably won't do a live stream today since I did an extra yesterday, so I think everyone's had their fill. Had to go live, though. Fucking 15,000 people were watching. That was pretty fun. Difficult to keep up with the super chats, by the way. And yes, I would say that people should consider donating to Trump's re-election bid. You know, if you want to hold back that $5 super chat and send a check Trump's way, he could use some more logistic support because he still has to fight this. He is still going to get dragged through a lengthy appeals process. It's his advantage politically, but up until then, up until November. You know, you have to go through summer before it's autumn, and you have to go through autumn before it's winter. In Vermont's climate, November is basically winter. There is still a length of time to go. He will still need to campaign, although right now he's effectively unbridled. Until that sentencing date, he can do whatever he wants. So he's got a few weeks of latitude now, and then the convention comes, and it could be very, very chaotic. They're probably trying to cause that too. They're worried that the Democratic National Convention is going to have tens of thousands of protesters showing up for Gaza or something, and it'll devolve into rioting and be another literal Chicago 68 moment. They're trying, therefore, to make the Republican nomination process messy, and that's basically sort of their last rung of defense until Trump wins and then they obstruct him up the ass. That's basically, I think, their operative tune. That's about all. Peace out.